Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 720 System Strategy Call. Today, we're talking about ways bankruptcy attorneys lose money with their bankruptcy leads. And on the call today, I got Adrienne Hines. Adrienne Hines is the TikTok influencer that we've been chatting about over the past couple months, 100,000 plus followers, and she engages with these bankruptcy debtors early. And what we're going to talk about today has a lot to do with emotion. And that's why Adrienne's on, and she has been a practicing bankruptcy attorney for how many years, Adrienne? How many years?
28.
28 years.
28.
28 years practicing bankruptcy attorney, now influencer extraordinaire. And on the call today, I got Rich Mack with 3 Pillars BK Intake. You've done 10,000 plus intakes, you and your team. You got a cadre of information, more experience than many bankruptcy attorneys. Thank you guys for jumping in. Across the country, we see people buying bankruptcy leads. We sell between 5,000 and 7,000 leads a month. They go into the funnel and they either convert or they don't convert. And many times we see breakdowns within the firm. And that's exactly what we want to talk about. And we want to talk about some things that are quite obvious you're going to see, and some things that aren't quite obvious. And I want to start with emotion, because this is where every bankruptcy attorney or bankruptcy debtor lead starts. They're dealing with a shame and an embarrassment about their debt. It's not a shame or embarrassment that you talk to your friends about or you bring up at a dinner party, right? And it's something that needs to be addressed. So Adrienne, let's start with you because of what you deal with, right?
Okay.
And so talk about this debtor early on. What does this look like from your perspective of this bankruptcy debtor and what most bankruptcy attorneys miss when it comes to the emotion?
Well, as somebody who's practiced bankruptcy law for quite a long time, even I was unaware at how emotionally difficult this actually was for people until I started doing my social media. And in that moment, I was able to start seeing and having conversations with people who are just for the very first time ever stumbling upon the concept of bankruptcy. They might have been searching for debt relief, debt consolidation, and they stumble into my content. And so I get to see them from the very first moment that they notice that there's something out there called bankruptcy. And almost across the board, the initial belief is fear, shame, embarrassment. I'll lose everything. It will ruin my life. And
Yeah.
so they come to the table with these terribly fearful emotions. Many of them, their spouses don't even know they've got debt. Most of them, their families have no idea. Their parents, their grandparents, nobody knows what's going on. And so I think the most important thing is to understand how incredibly vulnerable people are.
Right.
And when people are vulnerable, they're going to trust and follow somebody that shows them that they can take their hand and show them the way in a kind, in an intellectual, in a strong, I've got you, we can do this. But you also need to very much understand how difficult it was for every single person to make the first call. Most of these people do not have a support system in their life that's supporting this, and that's really what I'm out there trying to change. Right, I'm trying to make sure that we take shame and embarrassment away from the discussion of debt. But you have to recognize that the moment people feel like they've got that tiny little impetus to do something is really when you have to act upon it. You got to exploit that. And by exploit it, I mean helping them to get to the place where they need to be in order to make their lives better. When they
Right.
start to
Yeah.
see their lives can get better, that's when they
That's
start to
when,
buy in.
and that's when they act.
That's
Rich,
when they act.
speak about that picture, that selfie you saw in front of Clark in Washington.
This lady posted a screenshot the other day. She's right in front of Clark in Washington, stating how nervous and scared she is to walk into the office to have her initial consultation with the law firm. And so everybody was like, well, you got this, it's okay. And just commenting is like, this is the first step towards, a new future for yourself.
I mean, bottom line is this, we understand that bankruptcy is a lifeline. We understand that this is like a get out of jail free card. They don't, and they don't know what we know. So we really have to break it down. Adrienne, you said on the previous call, you're talking about how a lot of people, you hear from people replying
Oh, yes.
that they act like jerks, right? I mean, we don't
Oh,
have to go into this in great detail, but just like the kindness of the bankruptcy attorney actually matters. And you said something interesting. Give me a little bit of understanding. Like those were your words you used. So give me just a brief overview on that.
what most attorneys really struggle with is that, I'm in this place too. We're busy. We don't have a lot of time in our day. Things are moving oddly. We don't like to have things thrown on our calendar when they weren't there this morning. I fall into the trap of all of these things as well. But the reality is that these people need to get to us. They need, if they're going to make this call, they absolutely need to speak with somebody quickly, and they need to speak with somebody who is going to be kind and who is going to suggest or reward them by making that call. Because what I'm getting, and just, for an example, I wrote down a few numbers before I came in here. In the last 7 days alone, on my social media accounts, just on my TikTok account, I had over 1,200 comments on my videos, and I respond to each and every one of them. And in these comments are where people are telling me what's happening. I'm afraid to call a lawyer. I'm afraid I'll lose my house. I'm afraid to call a lawyer. I'm afraid to go in and see a lawyer. And I spent a lot of time responding to them. You can do this. This is your path to victory. You need to leave the shame and embarrassment at the door. And then they get on the phone with a lawyer who makes them feel like crap. And that's what we need to avoid. We need to make sure that every time you got somebody on the phone, that you're able to acknowledge and understand how difficult it was for them to get to you. And you need to find a few key words to help them buy in, to help them feel that you're on their side, so that they can trust you and they'll follow you along really wherever you go. But you have to get that initial trust right in the beginning.
What we're not advocating is an hour-long consult.
Yeah.
We're not advocating, hey, you're their therapist. Like, come on, that's not practical. The bankruptcy market's exploding. We're all feeling it. We got low-hanging fruit. Your debtor, I mean, I had an attorney yesterday say to me, hey, I don't want any lead under $15,000 in dischargeable debt. And I was like, wow, I haven't heard that in years, right? It's things like, I understand where you're coming from, right, Adrienne? It's like,
That's absolutely
Rich, I've seen this 100 times. You just want to make sure that these people know that this is normal.
And that's really what I repeatedly say to people. This is completely normal. Bankruptcy is a tool in the toolbox. You just need to have the right person who knows how to use it. We don't take down a tree with a butter knife. We use a chainsaw. People can be afraid of it, but I'm going to help you, show you how to use it. I'm going to help make sure that you're using the right tool for your financial problem. And I'm going to be here to help you. That is essentially what you need to do. I mean, again, these people's marriages, you understand, we are all bankruptcy practitioners who we're talking to. We know who our clients are. They are terrified. A lot of times their spouses don't know, or they do know, and they're in a divorce situation now. Everything is falling apart for them, and they're terrified and embarrassed. And the one thing that my account really what has tremendously helped my account is that I'm very neutral. I tell them debt is morally neutral. Never judge, never say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Oh, that was a bad idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They already know those things. So everything I say to them is hopeful. This is a fixable problem. That's a phrase I use a lot. This is a fixable problem. And you speak slow and calm for the few minutes you've got them on the line. You let them know that you're there to help them, that they can trust you, that you can follow through on what you're telling them. Because here's the thing, I'm out there telling people what they should expect of their lawyers, and they are becoming a little bit more understanding. If you're getting a lead from my content, for example, a lot of these people have watched a lot of videos about bankruptcy, and they're becoming a little bit smarter than the average Joe. So if you can keep them, at least with these leads, if you can at least come across as one of them that's smart enough to take them through this process, they'll love you forever. Yeah.
Like, this is not a bankruptcy lead where they Googled and they found you on Facebook and stuff. we get the feedback. Adrienne gets the feedback and comes straight back to me if it does, if the landing is wrong. So
yeah, and
really,
I respond to each 1,239 of those comments every single week, and sometimes people are putting up there, I tried to call and nobody called me back.
Well,
I
and
called
also
so and so and so and so from so and so, and I neutralize those comments. I go to them privately. I usually delete those comments and have a private conversation. And we had a client who was really off on the rails, putting complaints everywhere, and then it turns out everything worked out for her. And so we deleted all of them, and she sent me a message saying how happy she was.
She ended up talking to the client. She actually retained the firm, talked to the firm, and she was confused on it. But what was interesting about that lead is she had gone to numerous people. She ended up talking to you, probably because of that credibility. Rich, anything on this you want to talk about like emotion, about, acting, how you act? I know you with your intakes, you hand it off to the attorney. You've trained the attorneys to manage this, but any thoughts on that before we keep going?
Yeah, I know that a lot of times I just kind of draw out some of the emotions and what they're dealing with mentally when they're making that first phone call. And a lot of them I hear very frequently, it was so hard just to pick up the phone and make this phone call. And people will do about anything and everything to avoid bankruptcy because all these bad stigmas. They'll waste thousands of dollars in debt consolidation programs, or they'll get multiple loans, cash out their 401k, take out equity in their home. So they make all these big mistakes. And so sometimes when I answer call, like, hey, how are you today? Like, oh, I'm good. I'm like, well, I imagine be doing a little bit better. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking right now. And they're like, yes, that's true. So I feel like that kind of lets them get into their emotions, get real. I'm like, okay, well, I just want to get to know you a little bit and see what we can do to help you out. So tell me a little bit about what's going on.
Hey, Rich, I'm going to save the best part for last.
Okay.
Your conversion funnel, which I love. You should trademark that name. I'm going to save that for the end because it's so good. So stay tuned. Don't get off the Zoom. Okay.
Conversation funnel.
The conversation funnel. Oh, I called it the conversion funnel. Either way.
Yeah, it works.
Either way, trademark that. So I want to speak to something Adrienne commented on. And now this is like a no-brainer, but it doesn't happen sometimes. And the speed to conversation. So you got that client taking the picture, hey, I'm in front of Clark and Washington. I'm nervous, right? Okay, so think about telephonically. They're calling in and they're like, okay, I want to talk to a bankruptcy attorney. And people, they get a hold of someone and someone books them out multiple days. John Orcutt has said to me over and over and over, one of the greatest bankruptcy attorneys in the country. He says the best time to speak to a lead is when they're calling in. Hard stop. I mean, obviously, but it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen often. Often the leads are not spoken to, or they're talked to by somebody, and it's just a receptionist that schedules a meeting. And it's not a winning way to do it. Now, I talked to a large firm yesterday, and they go through all their attorneys to try to get to someone. But what we talked about was saying, okay, great. All the attorneys are on the line right now, but can you be on the line? We'll have someone call you in the next 5 to 10 minutes. Like you want to show the urgency that these people are expecting, because if not, they're going to backspace Google. They're going to find someone else because they just now created the commitment or the bravery, courage. Thank you, to call in. What do you guys think about that? Thoughts, Adrienne? Rich, what do you think about that?
Well, I know as a bankruptcy lawyer myself that as a practitioner, it's very hard. I know why it's hard. It's hard to stop what you're doing, take a call, and then, move your brain into that mode. And I know that lawyers fight against that. I do. I always have. And, at the end of the day, I also, up until July 1st, my firm, I was a partner in a firm that does a lot of injury work. And I was actually a workers' comp specialist. And I was taught from the very day I started that PI leads, they're millions of dollars, right? We don't let a lead slip through. Our firm has spent countless dollars and time and man hours trying to find a way to ensure that we get that whatever lead we get, whether it's bankruptcy, criminal, personal injury, workers' comp, that person is speaking to someone immediately, because we know what it would cost us if we don't have somebody and they go to the next person down. It's just something we have to do, and we have to get comfortable with it, and we have to get comfortable with doing this on the fly if we want to, be successcul and build a good bankruptcy practice, because
no
that's
doubt.
what's required.
No
Yeah.
doubt. Rich.
I like what you said about the attorneys not having time and being interrupted in the middle of something important, and that's true. Almost 5 years ago, I started working with Attorney Goodman. I started handling all of his inbound calls, and he was doing about 8-ish bankruptcies a month. And then as soon as I jumped in, took that task off of his plate, I could connect with the people, and his filings doubled the next month. So yeah, that's a really good point, is that
Well, I
having
mean,
cash and just connecting with them immediately.
and
Yeah.
we all like to get stuff done. Like emotionally, it feels better to like, hey, I'm gonna turn off the phone and I'm just gonna get this thing done, and go through the work. We're in the bankruptcy business. We're talking to debtors. This is a high lead ratio. We have to automate as much as we can. And if whatever is not automated, I mean, you can't automate the talking to a debtor. You can outsource it to someone like Rich, but then you're going to have to talk to the debtor as well. Because even if you're talking to a paralegal, Adrienne, we talked about this earlier. Rich talked about this earlier. You talk to a paralegal, they still want, like, they take you to the 1 yard line. You, as the attorney, need to bring the clarity and the conviction of, yes, I reviewed your file. This is a no-brainer. I'm glad you reached out to us, right?
Very simple like that, just very simple like that. And again, when I say to my clients, this is fixable, you are a regular, normal bankruptcy client to me, and I've been doing this 28 years. That alone just takes a tremendous amount off their shoulders, because they're like, oh, I'm a normal person. We all know what it feels like to go to the doctor, right? And you're so worried because you found this weird thing on your body, maybe in your armpit. You don't know what it is. You finally get the nerve to go to the doctors, and you're in the paper gown, you're going to show them where this thing is. And they look at it and they're like, I've seen a million of these. You're going to be fine. It makes us all feel better. We don't want our doctor to say, well, what'd you do? What were you doing over there? I don't know. This one's going to be a hard one. We don't want that, right? That takes our fear level higher. So anybody that can lower our fear level is going to be somebody that we're going to listen to and trust.
Not every bankruptcy lead is ready to file on the first call, right? So when you have the empathy, like we've talked about, right? I understand. I've seen this 100 times. Appreciate the courage of taking a call, and you understand, you build your value, drop them in the lead follow-up. I mean, it surprises me how many people pay us to follow up with their leads. If it costs more, you'd probably enroll every one of them, but it's only $200 a month. So you're like, well, maybe you forget about it. People do not enroll their leads into lead follow-up. So you're paying for these leads. And then for whatever reason in your mind is, I'm going to enroll them. I've heard this before. I'm going to enroll them if I can't get them. No, that's the wrong mindset, because a certain cadre are never going to retain. Get them in the lead follow-up. The first 3 or 4 or 5 emails are going to help the show up rate for the filing appointments, et cetera, and then take them out afterwards. But many people pay us monthly and they have literally 0 in lead follow-up. And I know they're getting leads. So my point is we talked about how to communicate. We talked about the obvious of the breakdown in losing money with your bankruptcy leads by not talking when they call or not talking fast. Ideally, it's between now and 2 hours talking to a lead. Like, the sooner, the better. And it matters. I mean, frankly, 15 minutes is infinitely better than 2 hours if you can't talk to it live. And then, so the last thing I want to talk about is either the conversation funnel or the conversion funnel. I actually like the conversion funnel better, because you're converting them in real time, right? And the concept, this is Rich's brainchild, which he's trained his paralegals in operating. So for those of you who just joined the call, Rich does intakes for bankruptcy attorneys all around the country. And actually, 40% of Adrienne's leads that come in off of TikTok as an influencer go to Rich's attorneys. And, you know, we all get the conversation is they call and there's like, hey, I just want to know more about bankruptcy. How much you charge? Like, come on, Rich, how much you charge? How much does law firm charge? You know, law firm XYZ, what do you charge? And before we go into it, let me just explain in my word, then you explain it. It's a conversation that slows down, opens up the empathy, drops value added like nuggets throughout the conversations for them to realize, oh my gosh, there's no way I can afford to go to this attorney down the street that charges $1,000. I have to, I'd be crazy not to. Is that a good way to summarize it, would you say?
Yeah. And yeah, just to role play that, I mean, if the attorney answers that call and they say, oh, well, I charge, you know, $2,200. Okay, that's too much. Bye. If you give them an answer, they're going to hang up. So I give them a reason to stay on the call with me. So it's like, that's a good question. And sometimes they even add, you know, sometimes I'm going to be honest with you, shopping for price for a bankruptcy attorney is kind of the worst way to do this. Let me tell you why. I'll tell you why later. But first, before giving you prices, I need to verify and make sure I'm giving accurate prices on which type of bankruptcy you're eligible for. So let me find out what you're eligible for, and then I'll get into prices with you. But tell me, what city do you live in?
Okay, stop, time out one thing. So we pivot away from the price, talk about eligibility. Oh, we got to find out what you're eligible for. But I want to point out one thing. He used the answer $2,200. If he would have said $1,500, the lead could have said, oh, there's someone down the street cheaper. He would have said $995. I saw a billboard for $750. You can't win. You
Right.
can't win the price game. Like
Right.
it's a losing proposition because there's some people who believe that they can make money at $750 a bankruptcy and they don't understand what they're doing. Don't even try that. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, just blow past it. Let me find out. And sometimes they're like, well, I just talked to another guy. He said I'm eligible for Chapter 7. It's like, well, I need to verify this for myself. Everybody's different. I don't know what conversation you had, but I also want to get to know you a little bit. So tell me, you know, what's the biggest reason you're filing bankruptcy and what's causing the most financial pain for you right now? And they tell me that, okay, great. So let me just ask you a few basic questions, be real quick. What city do you live in? Are you currently working right now? Tell me about your job. And then I just go right into my intake process. Typically you have these 70 questions. Sometimes I narrow those down just to get to the point. But while I'm in that conversation or conversion funnel, I'm also doing value adds. So throwing out price and saying, I'm experienced, I'm the best that around, I have the most experience. Everybody's going to say that. However, Phil and
hold
I
on,
first
time out 1 second. That's a great point. I got to say this. Everyone says we're a boutique firm and we give better service. It is a loser statement. Never say that publicly again. Like I'm just telling you, oh, we're a boutique firm. I can give you better service. Like they don't care.
Right.
I'm telling you, the debtor doesn't care. If they could take a pill and get rid of all their debt and never talk to you, they would take it in a nanosecond. They don't want the service from a bankruptcy attorney. They see you at the restaurant. They don't want to say hi to you. They're embarrassed because your billboards everywhere, your face is everywhere. Bankruptcy. They're hiding from you. Okay. I'm just telling you, don't say we give better service. Don't say people we're boutique firm. What you want to do is make them feel that you actually care. And you've seen this 100 times and this is easy. And then you're going to add value this way. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So yeah, I connected with Phil and I was shocked. I started doing calls for Attorney Goodman, who was part of the 720 program, and he was offering that. But I also identified that he wasn't incorporating that as a value add in his conversations. So there's tools. We're all here. We have access to Phil's resources, tools, and everything that he offers all of the attorneys across the country with this amazing network. But I found that attorneys were buying into this program and paying money for it, but they weren't implementing this into their conversion process or conversion funnel to convert leads. So I quickly found I can engage in a conversation and I can ask these questions and I can incorporate these in the conversation, these value adds. So I could tell the debtor, you know, I find a lot of times that just the general public doesn't have very good education with credit. So one thing that I do for you being my client, one thing I want to do is I want to make sure bankruptcy works for you and they have all the tools, links, resources, and education to build your credit after bankruptcy, because there's a lot of things that people don't understand about it. So for being my client, I'm actually going to give you free access to 720creditscore.com. So You can build your credit quickly after bankruptcy. You have links to credit cards, education, monthly calls. So you have all these tools so you can build your credit. You can pass those on to your kids and relatives and everything. So you get the education you need to make sure that bankruptcy is going to serve you.
So Rich, you earlier in our planning call, you even started off with a question. What are you planning on buying in the future?
Yeah. So in the
Like,
conversation, like when you build a good credit, what are you hoping to accomplish with a good credit score in the future? And then they tell me what the motivation is to file bankruptcy. That's like you're
Right.
drawing the motivation. So what are you hoping to do? Well, I'm sick of renting. I've never owned a house before, and I'm getting older, and I want to buy a house. I'm like, great. Did you know that we'll give you access to 720creditscore.com? They're going to help you build your credit, and they can actually teach you how to prepare to buy a house in 2 years after bankruptcy. Like, 2 years? Really? It only takes 2 years? I'm like, yeah. So you're injecting these things that are important to them while you're conversing, and that builds huge value to you as a law firm. So even though you're charging, I literally converted a lead just 2 weeks ago that the firm down the street, they called to cancel their appointment with the attorney after we already did an intake. And he kind of forgot some of these things in the conversation, and he was going to go with somebody that's $1,000 cheaper. It's like, hey, $1,000 is $1,000. I'm like, yes. It's like, just want to remind you, did that person talk to you about life after bankruptcy? Well, no, they didn't. I'm like, are they going to help you build your credit? No. It's like, I was like, one of the worst things that happen that I hear is 2 or 3 years later, after somebody filed bankruptcy, they're calling again and they need bankruptcy again. That's like so tragic to me. So we incorporate this. So in addition to giving you 720 credit score,
Hold on,
we
Rich,
also do a
Rich,
platinum credit.
Well, let me get to the platinum review in a second. So I want to point something out. Here's the value you want to give them, right? Tee it up with a question that's not obvious. It's like, do you want good credit? Well, of course I want good credit. That's like that's almost like pandering, right? Rich says, what do you want to do like in the future? Do you need to move to rent a better house? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to buy a car? Like, what do you need? Well, yeah, I have an old car. Well, great. Well, do you realize a credit score has to do with your loan? Yeah. Well, let me share with you what we'll do. So it's, you tee them up with the question of what they're going to need, and then you hand it. It's not just like a handout, oh, we're going to give this to you. Once again, we've seen this for years. People like use it as like a throwaway product. Like, oh, by the way, I'm going to give this to you. It's like an online program, and we're losing all the value that you create. We have people. You go to our Facebook page. You have people in front of sold signs. They bought a house, like a house, 2 years and 2 days after the bankruptcy. Many people have done that. I mean, forget about it with cars. Like, cars are like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Okay, so my point is, tee them up with a question of what they're going to do. Did you have something, Adrienne?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say that in all of my years of practice, my paralegal has always been really good about that. We don't, if somebody calls about price, we don't mention, we do the same type of thing. But I think it's really important for everybody to understand that one of the things that this is truly one of the things you guys bring to the table that not other lawyers bring to the table. I've never offered a credit rebuilder program. I don't know of anybody like in my group who's in my close group who's doing that as a general rule. And I'm using that in social media, when people are saying, well, I found a lawyer that's cheaper. These are the type of things that I'm saying. Does your lawyer care about what happens to you after this?
Yeah.
Is your lawyer going to be holding your hand and taking care of you? And do you trust this lawyer? But these people care more about their credit score today than at any point in history. This was not this much of an issue for them before COVID. It is a new way of life right now. These younger and younger people, everyone cares about their credit score in a way that I haven't seen over my last 28 years. Usually it was the older people, right? The younger people didn't care. They all care now. And this is a big deal for them.
I love it, Adrienne. Thank you.
Yeah, it
Thank
is.
you. Okay, go without video so we can
Yeah,
get you.
perfect.
Continue with the conversion funnel. What's the other thing you bring up to build the value as you're going through this?
We use the Schumacher Lane Platinum
Yeah.
Credit Review as a value add. So I always incorporate that. So right now we're in a very competitive bankruptcy market, and a lot of people are advertising. So I always incorporate this no matter what into the conversation. And it's especially important. I think a good place for it is right after you talk to them about 720 credit score and helping them build their credit. So in addition to helping you build your credit, just want to tell you, we also monitor your credit for 4 years after bankruptcy. And then I ask, do you know why we would do that? And they're like, no, I have no idea.
The question, do you know why we would do that?
Yeah.
Right? Because
Mhm.
these debtors don't understand this concept. Do you know why we would do that?
Yeah. So we find that 1 out of 4 or 5 people that file bankruptcy end up with a post bankruptcy creditor issue. That means that your creditors continue to contact you, collect, or even continue to report negatively on your credit after bankruptcy. And when that happens, it prevents you from building your credit or accomplishing your goals of what you were looking to accomplish with a bankruptcy. So we can actually catch that for you and litigate it for you and remove it for you with no additional fees or charges. Sometimes it's egregious enough where we actually litigate it, and sometimes you can actually get paid.
Wait,
Yeah.
what? You mean like I can make $500, I can make $1,000, I can get, and sometimes you know what? You can do it and it actually pays for the price of your bankruptcy because a creditor doesn't follow Fair Credit Reporting Act. And we do this for you. This is why we do it, right? And it actually gets you back the cost of the bankruptcy. Perked up ears.
And then just to add a little bit to, more power to that, and say most attorneys don't address that. And if you have talked to or are going to talk to any other attorneys about this, I want you to pay attention. Are any of these other attorneys that you're talking to, have they talked to you about this? Have they talked to you about helping you build your credit? What to expect after bankruptcy? The reason we offer this is most attorneys don't address this, and they just kind of, leave their clients to the wolves and, wish them luck. And we found that a lot of people were calling in saying, hey, I have this creditor still contacting me and I can't get a hold of my attorney. So most attorneys don't address this. So if your attorney's not addressing and helping you with things after bankruptcy, then that would be a concern.
You've said it over and over, Rich. I don't know how many times you've said this, but I've heard it. We sell before, during, and after the bankruptcy. Like we're here for you before, we're here for you during, and we're here for you after the bankruptcy. And debtor attorneys don't get this concept. Most debtor attorneys don't get this concept. They think to myself, I can't tell you how many times I've heard debtor attorneys say to me, well, they're not going to file with me again. Like we have that review. We have this product where we send emails to past clients on how to rebuild your life after bankruptcy. It's a huge value add. We generate Google reviews and we generate leads because debtors who have proven that life's better after bankruptcy forward these emails. And we know because we have call to rail tracking. And what's shocking is when attorneys say, well, I don't want to follow with my past clients. I'm like, you don't? And they just don't get it. But this is your competition. Like the good news is this is your competition. And for those on the call, you're not thinking this way. I love that, Rich. Rich, talk about the car example, right?
Yeah. And then another thing is sometimes I, ask them questions about their assets. So, okay, tell me about your car. What's the year, make, and model? Tell me about the loan. And so I'm saying if they have like a 2015 Hyundai Sonata and they owe $14,000 on it, I'm like, okay, you're in a 9-year-old car, more than 5 figures. Okay, what's your payment? I'm paying, $525 a month. I'm like, wow, that is a huge payment for a 9-year-old car. How's it running? So, and I tell them if they need a car or if they don't, say another thing that we do for you is we want to make sure that you have a good car and a good car loan after bankruptcy. More than about half of the calls we get are from people that have had a bad car loan or a car situation. So, and it could be financially devastating to get into a bad car loan or keep a bad car loan after bankruptcy. So to help you with that as well, just being thorough, we want to do a 360 view of everything and help you with everything we can. We have Ash Auto. We vetted them. We've worked with them for years. They've sold hundreds of cars to our clients, and they are the national leader in post-bankruptcy car loans. So they ensure that you get a zero down car purchase for zero down. They guarantee that the car is going to work and run well. And so we want to make sure that if you need a car now, we can help you with these resources. They get you pre-approved and you can buy a car and get a better car loan in most cases within a day after filing bankruptcy. So if you need a car, we highly recommend them. You can get a car anywhere you You
Yeah.
need a car anywhere you want, but we highly recommend them because we vetted them and we had really good success with our clients. So
Well, I
here,
mean, and if nothing
I
less,
send you a link.
do the free evaluation, right? You have free car consult. Like it's a no-brainer. So think
And
about this as
just
the
to add to that, Phil, is like one cool thing that I do that me and my team does is we actually send them a link and have them schedule a free car consult with Ash while we're talking. It takes them about 30 seconds to do it. And yeah, it's great.
the reason why we do this, and we've talked about this on previous calls, but I just want to repeat it, is because when someone qualifies and they can actually get a different car, it's not a brand new car, they're not going to the showroom or anything, but they can move from a 2015 Sonata to a 2022 Camry, right? They're more excited about filing. They get the paperwork in faster. Like there's a reason for all this. We've gone through this and we know this works. But I mean, think about it from a debtor's perspective. You just listen to those three things. You're going to go down to like Lavonda bankruptcy for 750. And if you do, you don't want them as a client.
Yeah, so getting to the close, like, so when we get to the fees, okay, we talked a lot. Your first question was how much do we charge? So I'm going to tell you, most of the firms I work with bifurcate, some of them don't, but everybody offers like some kind of a payment plan, whether it's like a layaway type or whatever. But just we'll stick with 2,500. Like, okay, first things first, to get started, the courts are going to charge you a fee. So we can't handle that. Nothing we do. The courts are going to charge you $338 just to file. So that's their fee. My fee, it's a flat rate. This includes all of my services before, during, and after the bankruptcy. I'm $2,500. Okay. That's $2,500 flat. You can only file bankruptcy once every 8 years. So essentially just consider like an 8-year, $2,500 to kind of watch out for you and protect you for the next 8 years. Okay. And then a lot of times they're like, well, I found someone down the street for $2,000. Like, yeah, at 2,500, that is enough money for me to dedicate the necessary time I need to. Anybody charging less than that, most attorneys right now are charging per hour, $250, $300 per hour. On average, it takes a bankruptcy attorney about 10 hours to do the work. And to be honest, I'm not going to be the cheapest in the area. I'm also not going to be the most expensive. I put my fees where I feel like they're reasonable, where I can dedicate the necessary time to your case without having to take any shortcuts. So anybody else charging a little bit less than that, they're very likely taking shortcuts. In addition, if they're not talking to you about protecting you and preparing for life after bankruptcy, that's another concern as well. But this is my fee. So how soon are you looking to get your case started?
And there you have it. Excellent. Thank you, Rich. That was super value add for the conversion funnel. Any questions? You can raise your hand or just start showing your screen.
Yeah.
How do you handle because I can't do zero down, I've got to do a payment plan. How do you handle the payment plan aspect of it? Now they say, I'd like to start right now or something like that. Gee, I don't know, I can't afford that. I mean, I understand what you said here, but how do you handle the payment plan issue?
Yeah, that's great. So one of the questions they ask in the intake is how much money do you have in the bank right now? Because, one, for exemptions, but also that tells me what they have available so I can close the deal and like move forward. So tell them 25, like this much money for the court. Most attorneys have some other upfront costs. So we know what they have in the bank right now. We also ask them when their next payday is. So we know how much money they make. So that kind of helps us have all the information we need to help them create a payment plan. We also know what their mortgage is or the rent, their car payment. So we have those details. So we're like, okay, you're making this much money, you have this much in your bank. How much can you afford to put into? The quicker you transact, the quicker they're going to be committed. But before that, as a or as the attorney, in that next conversation, if they're talking to me, we pass them on to you. That very next conversation should be signing a retainer for free. They can sign a retainer for free. Once they talk to us, they're talking to you. You make them feel all fluffy and just kind of reiterate or emphasize what we already talked to them about. We get on the same page and then have them sign that retainer. Now they're your client. And then at that point, work with them to transact and find like, okay, there's this much money. How much of this can you afford to pay today? And then also depends on the urgency. If they just got served a letter where they have a lawsuit started, or if they're getting garnished, like, hey, we need this money to get started. And so those tools in that conversation and in our intake forms, help you close more quickly. So whether, yeah, so I know Marty, you offer that layaway program. So, hey, we need this, I need this much money to finalize your case. What can we do? So transact right there. Ask them, is there any family members or friends or any other resources you have to pay for the bankruptcy, and then go that direction with it. But also use their motivation. Okay. This, like, the benefits of bankruptcy start the day you file. So to get things started with like helping you get that new car or working towards building your credit, that's going to start as soon as I get the money I need to file your case. And then that's where all the benefits start. That's where this lawsuit you just got served with ends, and like all those things.
Now,
I would just like to say too, in my own practice, one of the things I started doing early on is if a client pays half up front, then I will agree to be their lawyer. And so they can tell their creditors they've hired an attorney and they can send the phone calls to me. But I won't accept those phone calls and acknowledge I'm their lawyer until they've paid half. And so that is an incentive to get them to at least pay half quickly. And that's one of the ways we keep them in line.
a lot of people do that, Adrienne,
Do they?
with much lower, like $100,
Yeah.
$200. It
Yeah.
just gets them on the payment program.
We used to do a low amount, but it was just too complicated. It wasn't enough, honestly, for the work that we were doing, and people would drift away, and it wasn't enough to keep them there. So I charge half, and once they got half, then they know that they're almost there. But
Great.
that's just what I do.
Marty, would you have any more questions?
No, I'm all good. Thank you.
Good. Okay, thanks, Marty. Good to see you. Lars Olson, Olson Danes, Oregon and Southern Washington. Last month, they filed 23% of the cases up in Washington. I mean, super successful firm. Congratulations on all the hard work and everything. But I want to point something out, and this is something we specifically talked about yesterday. You know, for those of you that don't bifurcate, right? It's okay to not bifurcate, right? It's okay. Lars' success is without bifurcation, right? I mean, it's the whole, and Rich, I get your point about, hey, success starts when you file, right? I understand that. But it also begins when you retain. Lars, as someone who runs a huge practice and obviously successful, can you share that? What your thoughts are on that?
Well, we filed, just to correct it, we filed 26.2% of all the cases in Oregon last month. We have 14 offices in Oregon and Washington. And Rich, we use a lot of the same wording that you used today, but we can be retained for $200. But we do not do bifurcated fees. It's more trouble than what it's worth. We'll take payment plans. A lot of clients will pay us over 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. But once we don't file a case until all the fees are paid in full.
And I think that's a real, I mean, the thing is, it's not hurting you because there's people in Oregon that bifurcate, right? I'm assuming. Right.
Correct.
So my point here for you, Marty, and for those that don't bifurcate, don't believe like in your head, like this crackling and the lies of like, oh my gosh, I'm doing a disservice. Hey, you make a decision what's right for you. Clearly for Olson Danes at 26% of the market share, not bifurcating is a winning formula. What, anything else on that, Lars?
No.
Okay. And Lars, one other thing you brought up, and I have it written here from our meeting yesterday. You know, I love what you say. So people talk about the free intake, and everyone's selling the free intake, right? I mean, everyone sells a free intake, but you take it one step farther, and everyone does this on the call, but you actually communicate it.
Right. So we provide free consultations for all these clients, but we train our intake staff, and the attorneys also know that we let them know it's not just a one free consultation. It's a continuing free consultation until all of your questions are answered. Because we found that sometimes they said, well, the legal assistant will talk to them again, and prospective clients will say, well, I've already had my one free consultation, so I don't want to talk to the attorney again, thinking they're going to be charged. So we've trained the staff to say, no. It's an ongoing free consultation until we get all of your questions answered.
I love it. I mean, I absolutely love it. Lars, thanks for showing the screen and sharing your knowledge. Congratulations on the 26%. That's an extraordinary feat. Extraordinary. Any other questions before we wrap this up? I'm just so honored to have Adrienne and just share this information. It's fun. Obviously, I put Rich's phone number. If you'd like to contact him directly, you can reach out to him. If you want to talk to 720 System Strategies, reply to any email, and then I'll reach out to you directly. Now you can put a name with the face, Adrienne Hines, a ladylike lawyer on TikTok. Follow her, spread the news with your debtors, because what it is we've proven this, and now we have over 600 transfers in a few months. The debtor is not embarrassed. The debtor knows more, and they're ready to act, which is the most important thing. And we're so grateful, Adrienne, that you've come a part of 720 so we can build something special. And bottom line is help more people. Like that's
Yeah.
what we're all doing. And that's the fun thing about being in the debtor space. We can truly help people get out of their break and give them that get out of jail free card.
Absolutely. And we can do it with dignity.
With that, yeah, absolutely. Debt relief with dignity. I love that.
So a lot of times what I do is I say, yeah, but I cannot file because of the way the law is set up. I cannot file until all the fees are paid. And what I do is I get some resistance, and I feel like some of these people are maybe moving to somebody else because they don't know that that's going to be required, that all the lawyers, despite what I say, look, all the lawyers are going to be the same way. Do you guys handle that? Maybe Lars, you can answer that. I don't know. But I get that resistance, and I'm wondering how you folks push past that.
Yeah, blame the government. I think that's a good idea. Like, hey, the government here in Hawaii requires that I accept this, and that's going to be true for every attorney. And even in markets that are competitive with bifurcation, where they accept the payment plans, the law firms that don't, I've shopped them just to educate myself, and they say the same thing. Like the laws say that, and it's technically true because some areas it's true, some areas in the country that's true. So that, hey, no matter who you go to, just kind of, find the objections. When you find an objection that you're getting frequently, incorporate that into your conversation. So you're addressing that objection before it even comes up. Like, hey, I wish I could offer a file now, pay later program. The state of Hawaii doesn't allow that. So I do need to accept all fees. And that's going to be true for every attorney that you talk to. So, how much can you afford to pay today? And just go right into that.
Hey, Lars, do you have any feedback from Artie?
Again, I agree with what Rich is saying there. We explained to them, that as of right now, when you're meeting with me, 11:55 here on the West Coast, you are no longer making any payments on these credit cards, medical bills, collection agencies. You refer them to Olson Danes, you let them know. They may ask you if you're going to file bankruptcy, and you say, yes, I am. I don't understand this. I have to do what my attorneys have said. They told me I can't pay you. Talk to my law firm. I tell them, I said, throw me under the bus. Blame it on me. Tell them that you want to pay them. And, if we need to go further in the weeds, I'll say, it takes about 8 to 9 months from the time you stop paying them till the time they sue you. We want to get the case filed within that 8 to 9 month period.
Love it. Thank you, Lars.
Thanks.
Hey, Barty, I want to throw you one thing, and obviously we know each other well. So I don't believe that most debtors even understand the distinction between filing and retaining. Like, yes, some do. There's no doubt. And I don't have even know what percentage I could. I'm just alluding to what I've heard in calls. I'm alluding to what I've heard on our strategy calls and our question and answer sessions with the debtors. But I mean, here's the deal. If like, I wouldn't even say, hey, I can't file you. No, it's like, hey, we're moving forward. Oh my God, the debt. You heard what Lars just said. You heard what Rich just said. We're moving forward. Let's get this done. And I don't think you're going to hear the resistance of like filing versus retain. I do not believe that. Try it out for a week and then call me on my cell. Okay.
One thing to add to that, Phil,
Yeah.
is also don't wait for them to tell you. Don't ask, when can you do this? Like, ask, how much can you guide them into it? So they want a guide. So if I find that attorneys, a lot of people in this process, like, ask it, well, when can you make a payment and how much? Well, they don't want to pay anything. They don't want to pay it. So guide them, like, I need this much money. How much can you afford? Let's do this right now. So guide them to it instead of asking.
Right. Okay, everybody. On behalf of 720 System Strategies, Rich Mack, Adrienne Hines, Ash Auto Group, and the litany of services that we can do for you, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. That was really helpful.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.